Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for having me back on, man. I'm really excited to talk to the fans of Out of the Blank again. So, hello, everyone. It's
Well,
been a bit.
it's been a little while, man. I mean, we talked about, I have a good theory I want to toss at you. What do you think about, like, because I talked to someone and he had told me dinosaurs don't exist. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that guy's an idiot. And I would be willing to say he was even a fucking idiot. Yeah. If you don't believe in dinosaurs, I really don't know what to help you. I mean, the funniest thing for me is these people won't believe in dinosaurs, but then they'll go to church and then they'll be like, well, you just got to have faith. But I'm like, well, you don't need to have faith to know that dinosaurs are real because you can go and see one. I mean, if you have a friend at a museum, you can go and touch one. I don't know. I think we're really dealing with a lot of anti-science notions, and I think it's just become trendy to be the dumbest person in the room. And I think because of everybody's distrust of the media, a lot of that boils over to them distrusting scientists. And yeah, I mean, it's hilarious. I've seen the Christians Against Dinosaurs video with the lady, and she has the putty that she's just like, yeah, make this into a T-Rex. And it's really the issue is we don't have paleontology education in elementary schools. If we did, this wouldn't be an issue. If we taught paleontology at a young age, it would allow children to get into science earlier, and it would give them an outlet to make science interesting. I think dinosaurs are a lot more fascinating than learning about meiosis when you first get into science as a child. So maybe if we taught kids about, what dinosaurs are, how dinosaurs got there, about the rocks that are in the formations that they live around, people would understand it. But I think it's just the fact that a lot of people don't really have a solid understanding of historical geology. A lot of people have personal beliefs that they think contradicts evolution, which, I mean, in my personal beliefs, I kind of feel like you can be a Christian and believe in evolution. I don't really think those things are mutually exclusive. I've actually worked with a bunch of paleontologists who are Christians. But I think the real root of the issue when it comes to people being against dinosaurs and not believing in them really just comes from the fact that people have too much time on their hands and there's too many charlatans on YouTube making
Yeah.
self-publishing videos.
It gets really difficult because like the points I always bring up are actually ones that you've taught me. It's like, yeah, we're finding bones and dirts, for instance, and we're putting them in museums, but a lot of those pieces that we see, they're not 100% complete. I think everyone thinks that we're finding every single last scrum of the skeleton and being able to put it up for display. And I'm like, a lot of those are incomplete things, especially if you look at like what's interesting to me that I found fascinating that you taught me was like you're able to record data or pull things off their teeth of what if they were a herbivore, if they were a carnivore. And I was like, I think it's when you find out so much is bullshit, you start to pick apart things that aren't bullshit. And that happens to be dinosaurs. People are like, well, they implanted them there because I've never seen one. I'm like, well, they lived a very, very long time ago. You still see modern dinosaurs, but that's not good enough for people. People want to see a physical T-Rex kill their grandma in front of them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'd like to see a physical T-Rex kill an anti-dinosaur denier. That'd be great. I would like to see, I mean, not the grandma. I'd say eat the idiot. Um, Maybe slap the grandma for raising an idiot. Um, yeah, I don't know what it is. I think it's really people are just I think when you get into a conspiratorial mindset, everything can start looking like a conspiracy. And, I've seen people touch on this before. Like, I've even heard people like Alex Jones talk about it. Like, it's almost like a type of psychosis these people get where, you go down these rabbit holes and then you start seeing it everywhere. It's like you start seeing the Illuminati everywhere. You start seeing, you might think QAnon or whatever. And I think those same people who are susceptible to like conspiracy theories like those are probably very susceptible to flat earth or anti-dinosaur or young earth creationism or anything like that. In fact, actually it might at least young Earth creationists still believe in dinosaurs, even if they believe Jesus rode them. So,
I mean,
they're a
still,
little better.
you got to get a win somewhere, I guess. But on the concept of like, if you look at like the research and science that's getting put into a lot of the work, especially you do, 'cause you're the best person to talk to about this because you work with it on a daily basis. Whether you talk about going on an excavation of digging up old pop cans or something like that, but still being around the museum, curating some of the stuff too, even just being whatever education you've gotten in that field, you have a very good point. Paleontology isn't really talked about in school. Like how many kids they expect like nobody wants to really learn about paleontology. Nobody wants to learn about crucial fundamental things, for instance, like even car
Mhm.
mechanics and stuff, unless you're going to a trade school. And I'm like, the world, there are so many people that have something about them deep. Like for me, I'm a Greek history nut. I love Greek history, but you wouldn't be able to tell by looking at me. But they're going to throw me in calculus or something like that, expecting me to hook onto that. Like it's learning about the Greek gods. Teach me about philosophies. Teach me about all these things that were old back in the day, but still might have some resemblance of meaning today. But schools and education systems don't look at that. They go, well, we need you to be able to function like a 9 to 5. Well, what happens if I want to search in the middle of the Arctic or something for bones of some type of creature that used to live here long, long ago? They don't ever that doesn't boggle up into their mind because they need to teach you the basic fundamentals, which is why people have questions about stuff that they don't really know. And I'm like, your best advice, instead of being a conspiracy theorist, looking up an article that tells you back in the day they found a dinosaur, but they used a reptile skull to replace it as evidence when the very first one happened. I was like, instead of using that crazy stuff, why don't you go to a museum and see it for yourself and see that there's saber-toothed tigers that you can look at, there's mammoths that we can look at. They're like, well, let me tell you,
Exactly.
what about the recreation of Playatorian Park or whatever it was called? It's supposed to happen in June of 2020. That didn't happen. I was like, yeah, a lot of shit didn't happen. COVID happened. So let's talk about that.
Oh, it's hilarious. The first thing I'll say is if there is some grand conspiracy that dinosaurs aren't real, where the fuck is my Lamborghini, dude? Like, where is my payout? Like, shouldn't Donald Trump be writing me a check or something? Like, what's going on? Like,
Yeah.
why do I make $40,000 a year if I'm lying about fossils? I don't know. Yeah,
Well, that's
I'd
such a
say
that's
that
such a
if
bold career path, especially doing paleontology. You're doing anything that is scientifical, I would say, because you're not necessarily in it for the money. You're in it for a couple of reasons. You're in it because you're interested in the actual subject, and you're also interested. I mean, for me, getting the fucking name of a dinosaur named after you, get to name the actual thing, that's pretty cool. But making a scientific
oh yeah.
discovery that literally can change the fucking way that we've all been thinking throughout history and stuff like that. But the weirdest part about science right now, or anything that has evidence of what we might consider facts, and I like to keep an open mind of stuff, okay? But we're eliminating science on the basic principle is it doesn't
Yeah.
fit what we want to be the truth. And I'm like, you can't erase past history and say it never happened. We need to learn from it. That's why we recorded it. That's the importance. They even knew that back then.
Oh yeah, I mean, we've known it forever. Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it, and each time they repeat it, the price goes up. Um, I really think that us as a society, we're moving towards a post-truth world, and I think that a lot of that has to do with the adoption of social media. So many people I know. I mean, I literally know scientists, museum curators, lawyers, doctors, filmmakers. These people, they're educated people. They'll, when they're doing their own research, they'll do all their background research. They'll do everything they need to know to get a nuanced and correct opinion on what they're studying. But when it comes to other stuff, these people, I mean, everybody out there, we're all guilty of this. We all just read headlines. We all just read headlines, and then we read like 250 characters, and we think we know everything about the subject, and then we go and we spat our stupid little mouths, and it's like this awful game of telephone that just continues to, become this malignant force in our society. Um, I, I, I don't know. I think we're gonna see the real ramifications of like having such a connected society during our generation. I mean, I haven't talked about this much on Out of the Blank, but, you know, I'm also trained as an anthropologist. And, you know, this touches on a really interesting subject. Why do people end up following these very strange beliefs? You know, why do people get sucked into this? Well, I think a lot of it is just, you know, everybody wants to find a group that they belong to. And I think people who get into conspiracies, they get into conspiracies almost because they want to find a group that they belong to. They want to find some kind of order and they want to belong to something because they feel alienated in their own worlds. And I think that's, you know, that's something that we as a society and as a world should address. And if we don't address, we're just going to see these issues continue to, you know, grow in our society. And who knows what we'll be, you know, if this post-truth world continues. I mean, I'm hearing people who are like left and right wing who are talking about, who are like anti-vaxxers now. You know, people who, the flat earth movement is growing rapidly. Why? Why would this thing that's so obviously false, like you can get on a plane from Los Angeles and fly to Tokyo and then fly to Moscow and then fly to LA back again, and you will go all around the world. Like what do these people not understand? I don't know. I really think I think it's interesting, though. I will say I think it's fascinating to watch people, you know, fall into these boxes. And I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's anything really too new in our society. We've always had insane anti-science folks. I mean, you know,
Well,
look at Salem.
Part. Here's the scary part,
Yeah.
Tim, is that when those people say the conspiracies or say these ideas, I like to keep an open mind to it, but nobody sits there and insists that they're wrong and they're dumb and they're stupid. What happens is they attack people who have PhD papers. I did not know this when we last talked, but I see on Twitter all the time now, people are like, I'm defending my PhD thesis today. And I'm like, you have people that are literally trying to take down your work because they feel like that you are wrong. You're at this and you're constantly being on attack. And yes, the whole point of science is you're supposed to evolve, but that's why people are being on the chopping block that are scientific researchers. Like, I feel like the people that start a conspiracy theory and dive down a rabbit hole is because they meet someone like I did at one point, where I was asking questions about Native Americans and this person just kept talking to me like I was a fucking idiot. And I'll admit, I'm not the most intelligent, but when you do that enough to someone, they start to create resentment and they start to want to go against your narrative and fight you at every whim and whimsical. I'm like, that's why you see a lot of people with PhDs to say Earth's flat or whatever. And the PhD people are just like, what the fuck? I'm not even going to waste time into this. It's like talking into a wall. And you can see that person's perspective, but they don't shame you for it. The other way around, the conspiracy theorists will shame you for everything that you've created, everything in science. I mean, it's just I talk about who wants to be famous today. Who wants to be a scientist today? That's the toughest gig in the world.
Well, I'd say it's a little tougher to be a YouTuber, especially after several adpocalypses. I mean, you're pretty much in a wasteland there.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think the real issue with this, and it's something you touched on, I think academics do hold a lot of the issue, some blame for our anti-science society. And part of that blame falls with the fact that academics want to act like elites. You're not paid like elites. You're not working at the banks. You're not in Congress. You're not a general in the military, an officer. Why are you acting like you're some elite member of society? We don't have, like, academics should not be like lauded as some elite member, because what that does is that makes the general public resent them. And I think academics, and I've definitely dealt with this before, I actually am kind of against a lot of the academic writing styles. I think the academic writing styles almost act as a way to gatekeep, to keep people who may not have the proper terminology but could still understand the concepts. I think that allows them to, you know, keep a monopoly on that information. And so basically in science, if I know something and you don't, then I have power over that other researcher, right? And that's kind of how it works with a lot of academic journals and stuff. But, you know, crack open part of the reason people don't believe in dinosaurs is if you gave the Journal of Vertebrate Paleontology to somebody who didn't know anything about dinosaurs and was like, hey, look at this research. Let's study early sauropodomorphs from the Triassic Jurassic boundary, right? They wouldn't even get through the abstract because all of the lingo in that would be so aristocratic that they wouldn't be able to digest it, when you could get the point across using very down to earth language. And I think we as scientists need to start talking more. We need to talk talk dumber, because we need to play to the audience that we want to get. We need to start actually showing science, instead of just having this bubble of people and this little group of research where everybody goes to SVP or everybody goes to their conferences and they're like, hey, look, just presented a poster, just did a talk, yay me. And the only people who learn about your research and the only people who like get interested are these people who also do the same thing. How does that make the science better? You make the science better by getting new people interested in it, by growing it, by helping the general public actually digest this information. We can discover all the things in the world, we can have all the knowledge in the world, but if nobody actually digests that knowledge, then what value is it? I think we really need to start talking in a way that the general public can understand. And we need to start, making it so that being a scientist is a cool thing to be. It should not be a lame thing. I'm a scientist, people don't expect me to be wearing like punk rock shirts. They don't expect me to wear like a Metallica shirt to work, or, they don't expect that, because they expect you to wear like a suit and, the professor jacket with the sleeves. And
that's
everything.
Every mass symbol when it comes to science is like, I think you said it, you hit the nail on the head when it comes to kind of a little bit talking dumber to people, is the fact of like, I'm not intelligent, but being able to talk to you, you're talking to me like I'm an actual person. You're not using a bunch of hip paleontology words or anthropology words that I wouldn't really understand. You're talking to me like a human, like how Bill Nye teaches people. He talks to them like a better way to under fucking stand it. And here's the issue is when you're talking about a bunch of people, scientists that go to these conferences that show off all their knowledge rather than talk to the general public. You're fucking talking to people in the same craft as you, makes it easy to use whatever language you want, but you're not getting any new people into the craft. It's like fucking going to a Freemason lodge over and over and over again and expecting new members to come in if you're not letting people know where the fuck the meeting's at.
Yeah, if it wasn't for Indiana Jones and Jurassic Park, we'd be completely screwed. Like, thank God for those movies, because we wouldn't have any new blood in paleontology right now. And
Chris
luckily,
Pratt is your all-star.
No, not Chris Pratt. Alan Grant. I'm old school. Chris Pratt is the Gen Z all-star. Yeah. But I really think that academics need to stop acting like they're better than people, and that starts with believing that they're not better than people.
Here's where the scary thing
say it, but
really comes in, though, is if you look on Twitter, if you look on any social media, I started realizing they say my tweets are my own. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of why we fucking follow you. We're not following the account of the school that you went to, but the fact that like a school goes, you got to make sure you make that clear so it doesn't fall back on us for anything you say. And I'm like, man, this is when you start seeing suppression. I follow plenty of accounts that all talk about like, I can't believe Trump's doing this. Can't believe Biden's doing this. Can't believe that. I'm like, I get it. But you're also, people are following you because they want to know more about this subject. I mean, the fact that you have, like, I look at so many people with PhDs in oceanography, melting the polar ice caps, learning about badger fucking. That's an actual scientist person I follow on Twitter. And they have
it's true.
20 or 30 followers. And I'm like, you should be more known, but you don't have a lot of following because all you do is tweet things not about the topic that people see in your bio. And I'm like, people are interested in this. We want to know about primate studies. We want to know about dinosaurs. Bunch of people out there want to, because even though there's I'm going to admit, a large amount of people that want to know about the cinnamon toast crunch and shrimp tail thing, there's still a large amount of people that care about the science and what is real and what is not, because sadly, right now, social media, especially with the pandemic, is being the better form of education when it comes to museums aren't really open anymore. We don't have the virtual reality thing hooked up 100% for it. And it's like you are our sources of information to be able to, instead of Google, which I don't think you should trust at all.
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to get too political on here. Believe me, I could. I will say this. I'm a free speech absolutist. Yeah, I kind of believe that you should be able to scream whatever you want in a town square. But that's just me. I'm kind of old school when it comes to that. But I think there is a lot of hope. I definitely know that people have missed the museum industry and things are finally opening up. I mean, here in Los Angeles, which is where I currently live now, I no longer live in the Black Hills. I live on the West Coast. And yeah, they finally opened up the natural history museums here. It's opening on the 1st. I think that's great. Nationwide, pretty much, they're all finally starting to open up. And now we can start to pick up the pieces of, the nightmare that was 2020. Hopefully that stuff is going to be long behind us and will be nothing but a sour memory that we tell our grandchildren someday. But, the museum industry, it will survive. You will have a lot of people moving forward and getting jobs. We're going to see it come back. We're not going to see places like the American Museum, the Smithsonian close down. We may see smaller museums take a hit, like the one I used to work at was pretty severely damaged by COVID-19. But part of the reason I'm not there anymore, not enough funding. But I don't know. I think we're going to see things change for the better. My opinion, last time I was on the podcast, I was a little more pessimistic about the future, but this time I really feel optimistic. Regardless of everything, I really do feel optimistic. We're seeing a lot of really cool papers come out, and the public has an interest in paleontology. If the public didn't have an interest in paleontology, we wouldn't see like really low-level paleo stories going viral. Like somebody found a triceratops in South Dakota, somebody found a triceratops in Wyoming. I mean, 2 of those stories went viral last year. Finding a triceratops, like, I hate to say it, but it's not that impressive. We call them cows of the Cretaceous because they're literally everywhere in the Lance Creek Formation. I think paleontologists need to take it upon themselves to start reaching out to local journalists, reaching out to people in your organizations and your local area, trying to get people interested in paleontology, trying to get people interested in your discoveries. I mean, people find new species almost every month. They discover new things all the time. But these like scientists who are like socially awkward in their own little bubbles, they'll dig up this thing, they'll bring it back to the lab, they'll like write up the paper and they'll present it SVP, but they will not even think to call CNN. They won't even think to call their local Fox journalist or whatever. And if they did, then that might actually be a really good opportunity to get the public involved and engaged. Another thing I'm starting to see is we're starting to finally see social media take off in paleontology. And so I've had a few of my friends that have like, Holly Simon, she's at the Whiteside Museum of Natural History. I have my friend Catherine Abbott at, she was at Dino Lab. Now she's one of the co-hosts of the Dinosaur podcast. She's been really doing great. She's marketed herself as the Spinosaur Queen. She kind of looks like Miss Frizzle. She's up in BC. She's doing really well. I think there is going to be a lot more paleontologists and a lot more scientists getting into content making. I intend on getting into content myself.
Podcast? Yeah,
I'm thinking about starting a podcast. It's just about finding the time. I'm juggling. I'm working for 2 different companies here in the Los Angeles area. Looking for fossils and looking for artifacts on projects all over the city. I'm working on my research project.
Record it for you like I'll record you talking and just have it, and then I'll post and do all the details and everything. You just send me whatever I need to for the episode, whatever content you feel like talking about. Even if you do a recording through your phone, I'll make it better, and then I'll put it into like a filter so it doesn't sound like it's on a phone, so it sounds like through a mic. I'll do it all
Oh,
for
yeah.
you, man. You need a podcast, dude, because I love the fact that like I can click on the whatever podcast apps where everyone goes to. Like I do like Joe Rogan and all, but the best part about his show is that he
He's
has
kind of gone
scientists on it.
down since he went on Spotify. I'm going to be honest.
Because he's doing like he did. Miley Cyrus was okay, but then they had Demi Lovato, and I swear to God, I felt like my dick go inside of me on the fact of like she's just way too much like fuck you if you eat meat, fuck you if you do. I'm like, oh my God, like I just felt so threatened the whole time watching it. I'm like, I used to love you on the show, but you're talking about how your friends can't separate you between the celebrity. And I'm like, that sounds such like celebrity problems, but you're acting like it's the worst thing in the world.
Isn't Demi Lovato from New Mexico? Isn't she?
I thought on So Random, they said she was from Wisconsin, but that might just be horseshit.
Oh, she's from Wisconsin. Oh, it might be. I don't know. I know there's like some pop star that's from Roswell. So I can't hate on anybody who. Yeah. Okay, I can't hate on anybody. I can't hate on Ariana Grande because anybody who can make it out of Roswell, New Mexico, and become famous is doing well. Roswell is a terrible town. Demi Lovato, though, I mean, I don't know. I don't have much to say about her. She takes up no real estate in my mind at all.
But I mean, like we talk about YouTube being a wasteland, for instance. A lot of it happens to do with why, like even you telling me the story about the Triceratops that was found and all this, I did not know any of this. This is not something like Mars was trending for a day. And then it was like something completely different. Vloggers that are trending for several, 8, 9, 10 days because they're having sexual assault charges on them. Army Hammer was trending at one point. There's literally everything is like, manja, give me the shit. It's like feed them shit, not feed them anything like with some science to it. Most podcasts that get top ratings are ones where a person shows their asshole and then 10 minutes later they show their dick. That's more than a science podcast or a history podcast. The fact that Dan Carlin's Hardcore History was top at one point, but he releases an episode a year. That's not enough for people to want to stay and get ready for that one fucking episode. We need way more than that.
Yeah, it's not. We need people to produce, steady, researched content and, really bring things to the forefront. I don't know. I'm not one to hate. Like, if you want to expose yourself on camera to your Patreon people and you put a disclaimer saying that, hey, you might see some pork and beans. That's all good with me. Like I said, whatever you want to do it as long as it's not hurting anybody, as long as you're not being hateful or whatever, do whatever you want. I kind of feel like I'm a huge artist. I like people like Iggy Pop and stuff. I can't talk crap about that. But I really think we just need scientists who are dedicated to like sharing their research. And I think people, there's so many people with such a deep rooted passion in what we do. I mean, we talked about how the money isn't super great for paleontologists, but that's a good thing unto itself because it attracts a certain group of people who are very passionate about it. I mean, I think my coworkers in paleontology are some of the best coworkers you can possibly get because each and every person in that room with you is passionate about what they do. And they know damn well that they could be making more money doing something else. Somebody with a geo degree. I mean, I know a guy, Joe Sertic is a curator at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. He's a medical doctor. He could be making like so much more than he's making now, but he chooses to stay at the Denver Museum so he can continue to making like fascinating, amazing discoveries and progressing the science forward. I think that's a really good thing. And, that creates a healthy environment for people to work. And I think people like that, are really easy to listen to. I mean, I think people really do well on podcasts. There's so many interesting paleontologists out there that need to get their voices heard. I mean, there is like so many people in paleontology, like, they don't even know that there's
Tim,
like
I got the
diversity in the
best
science.
fucking platform for it, bro. If you know people, I'll be
Yeah.
more than happy to chat with folks. The reason why I like this is because I like the concept of I like talking with people that are interested in something because they seem like even though it might be a job or it might be work, they don't care about the pay. They don't care about these types of things. They care the fact about what they're researching is interesting to them, which makes you way more passionate about it. Like so many people that start YouTube channels, start vlogging channels, it's all for the idea of what fame is. And I'm like, hold on, are you fucking interested in it? Because every time I see somebody tweet about a podcast, they're like, sorry, no episode today. I don't have the mental fortitude to do so. I'm like, I post every day. You think that's fucking mentally
Mm-hmm.
healthy, but I fucking enjoy the shit out of it.
Yeah, dude, I really respect what you do, man. I like your content. You have a lot of really interesting people on there. And I think, you know, what we touched on earlier, we're making science digestible for the general public. You're perfect for that. Because, you know, we can joke around and cuss, but we can also still talk about like, you know, complex systematic principles of understanding evolution. We can still talk about how you set up a phylogeny, how you understand, you know, how these animals ended up getting there. We can still talk about the braided stream of evolution. You can still talk about all of these things while making it digestible.
Yeah, like I'm not sitting here with a notepad being like, well, you said this in your PhD paper, and I want to ask you
Yeah, I
about that.
know.
No, I rather want to talk about like, imagine if at one point, maybe 100, 200 years from now, we're able to have recreations of actual, maybe smaller dinosaurs, not bigger ones yet, but then being able to test music theory on them where you play a certain song and see if they react to a different way, much like a dog might react to like, I watched, and I got this idea because I watched a video of a guy grab 4 screens with the swirly little circle in it where it makes you kind of trip out, seem like going into a void. And he just played Alice in Chains. And this toad was like fucking hypno toad. It was getting like hypnotized. And it was next thing you know, it was sitting up just like down in a hole. And I'm like, I fucking love that idea that like maybe plant perception was a thing at one point. Let's dig that back up. We have better technology now. I'm not saying it might be a truth, but have that curiosity, have those crazy ass ideas that spark inspiration to things that you create and things that you do. Everything nowadays, it's like, I'll wait for some guy to create that. It's like, why the be the guy, be the girl, be
Exactly.
who the fuck ever.
Be Rick Sanchez, damn it. Do it. Make your own universe. Yeah, I think I don't know. Sorry, I drew a blank there. You know, I
Welcome
guess
to the
that's why they
show.
call it out of the blank.
Yeah.
Yeah. um, we should touch on some science here. I don't want it to be all shooting the shit.
Well, what would you
Did you
consider?
hear about the new oviraptor that they just found in China?
They found a raptor in China.
Yeah. So what they found was an oviraptor, which is a type of dinosaur, and the name of oviraptor actually means egg thief. That's because in the early early days of paleontology, with the American Museum's first trips into the Gobi Desert in Mongolia, they were able to come across all of these nests, you know, these perfectly preserved nests in these sand dunes. And what they found was little Pentaceratops nests, and then they found other nests, but they would always find oviraptor skeletons around the nests. So originally, when the paleontologists found this, they actually thought that that dinosaur was stealing eggs, which is why it gets the name oviraptor, which means egg thief. It's actually something else. So recently, they discovered a fossil in China. I forget exactly which province it was. It might be Xinjiang, but they discovered a fossil there of an oviraptor mother laying on top of a clutch of eggs, and in those eggs were fossilized embryos of baby oviraptors. Now, we've actually known that oviraptors were not thieves before because we found fossils like this before, but this fossil is so exquisitely preserved that we're able to actually look at the eggshells. We're able to look at the embryonic stage of these dinosaurs, and we're able to actually understand some of the ontogeny, which is a fancy way of saying the life cycle of these animals. So that's an example of amazing fossils that are found on a very frequent basis. Another really interesting thing, is some of the sauropods that are coming out of Patagonia, Argentina. So they are just pulling out the biggest damn dinosaurs in the world. Have you heard of Pagadititan or Anatotitan? Dude, all right. So Pagadititan, have you ever seen a long neck dinosaur before?
Yeah.
Yeah. So take that long neck dinosaur you see and then triple it in size. And that is the Pagadititan.
Oh my
They have
God.
one at the American Museum of Natural History. This thing is in a giant room. Like, you could fit 500 people in this room. It doesn't fit. It's so large that its head sticks out of the side. I mean, it was found by this researcher called Diego Pool. And I don't know what's going on down in Argentina, but they are finding some insane fossils down there. Their tyrannosaurs are huge. They recently found a tyrannosaur that is like twice the size of T-Rex because it's hunting these gigantic, like, Leviathan sauropods. And God knows what other kinds of dinosaurs are down there in Patagonia. We can find so many new fossils from Argentina. And I think, the public really needs to start looking into that. Like, what are some, like, everybody knows about the Hell Creek and everybody knows about like the Morrison Formation almost, where they were like, oh, I know Stegosaurus, I know Brontosaurus or Brachiosaurus or Potosaurus, I know T-Rex and Triceratops, but nobody's heard of Anatotitan. And I guarantee you that Anatotitan or Pagadititan are way more, or the Argentinosaurus are way more badass than any one of those dinosaurs.
So,
and people really need to start looking into how cool those animals are.
this might be a very dumb question, but bear with me on this. Is that, like, if you've ever seen feeder fish in a little tank before, they grow to the size of what their environment is. So they can keep growing to be like a foot long if they wanted to. Now, depending on where these climate of where these dinosaurs are being found, and depending on what the food source, how big of it is there possible, like, to see in some areas there's smaller triceratops, and then in larger areas there's and maybe in a different climate, different country, there's larger ones based on the fact that there's more room for growth. There's maybe, a sizable increase in there's at any point you would think that they would all be like the same, because we always have a base measurement when it comes to the designs of these things. And I'm like, to say that there isn't like a mutated one or one that's a little bit bigger, it turns into a different species of things. I mean, you mentioned the ending of that word was Titan. So that is bigger than God in the main eyes of mythology and things of that sort, which is, I'm guessing, why it's incredible large size. So I'm wondering if there's a possibility that there's a lot of species, depending on its climate, could vary its size, obviously probably vary its diet a little bit as well too.
Yeah, so what you're talking about is functional diversity, which is a tenet of paleoecology. And we're in luck because paleoecology is what a lot of my research is focused on. Now, the cool thing about understanding how different animals adapt to different environments is we have a lot of mathematical regressions that we can actually look at. So there's a few different things we can look at. So we can look at functional diversity in a population. And basically what happens is we take a sample of all fossils that we found from a certain locality or a certain area, and we study those fossils. Like, say, we'll look at the long bone lynx, or in my case of the gopher jaws that I study, we'll look at the tooth rows. Now, looking at those two different lengths, we can apply mathematical equations and determine what the exact size of that animal is. Now, if you get a large enough sample size, then you can apply that over a large spectrum of different environments. Once you do that, you can start to understand how the animals within that environment have not only evolved to fill certain niches, have gotten bigger or smaller as a result of their, availability of resources or climate. You can determine all of these things from just looking at skeletons. And the cool thing is we can actually see in the very recent fossil record how this happened. So, for example, here in Los Angeles, the largest grizzly bears in North America lived here in the LA basin. Do you want to take a guess as to why?
I'm guessing because of the environment was maybe more suitable. But then California hunt them down?
Yeah. it wasn't very hospitable when the settlers found the place. But before that, it was a cornucopia of life. I mean, it was one of the greatest places to be a grizzly bear because there was just like endless supplies of food, and you don't have to hibernate in LA.
Yeah.
So you can just get gigantic and mean. And yeah, the biggest one ever recorded in North America was here in Los Angeles. And so we think about that concept, the same general concept can play out in, Laramidi or Appalachia, looking at dinosaurs. One of the things that comes to mind is the Laramidian Coastway in Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument, Utah, particularly the Kaparowitz Formation representing 70 million years ago. Now, I actually cut my teeth on this formation working with the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. And one of the most interesting things about excavating in this formation is the amount of centrosaurs and the amount of ceratopsian diversity. Now, let me break that down a little bit. So, you know how we have Triceratops?
Yeah.
And just Triceratops in Hell Creek? Well, the great-great-great-great-grandfathers of Triceratops lived in the Laramidian Coastway around, central Utah, southern Utah. There was way more than just one boring ceratopsian like Triceratops with 3 horns and a frill. There was Diabloceratops, which had crazy amounts of horns. It had almost what we call a comb-over. I mean, its skull looks amazing. If you ever get the chance, you should definitely look it up. We also found Cosmoceratops at the same time. This has the most horns out of any dinosaur ever. So one of the questions we can ask is, why are we seeing so many different dinosaurs with crazy like ornamentation on their skulls? Now, a lot of these horns and stuff, you look at them, they're not there for defense. They're there for display, whether that be attracting mates, whether that be, showing dominance, who knows? But there's some question as to why you have this huge adaptive radiation of like tons of different types of unique ceratopsians, when in other areas, like in other times, you only get Pentaceratops or you only get Triceratops. Like, what's going on here? So the fact that, certain biomes can produce unique animals is an idea that's as old as Darwin. I mean, it's the very same concept he brought up with the finches.
This might not even be a conspiracy theory, but my little theory on this is like, imagine you were a bird, like a prehistoric bird, and you're looking down, you see this giant creature, looks like a lot of food, but then you see a lot of spikes on its head, and they might not be sharp, like to where you can touch them, but from a bird, or maybe the mind of one looking down and seeing that, might scare them away from wanting to pick this thing up and carry it off. But also, there's species that have like they've done from growing them in different environments, hatching different eggs in different environments. Some can be born with like thicker coats based on the climate that they're in. So it's like, I don't know if the horns would be a variations, but my mind wanders because of the fact of what it could be. I like the fact that there's multiple different outlets of what it could be, not just one specific one.
Well, I like the idea you brought up with the birds. I don't think that these are multi-ton animals, so I don't think they have to worry about getting pulled away. And I also don't think that they would want to repel birds. I think much like modern elephants today, they would actually have probably a symbiotic relationship with birds at the time, because that would allow them to get parasites off or just allow them to stay a little cleaner, the same way birds help out, crocodiles, or they help out any other animal in the modern Serengeti. I think those same relationships existed in prehistory as well. And with the concept of uniformitarianism, it would make sense.
That was the politest way of telling me I'm wrong. Thank you.
You're welcome. I could always just say you're a fucking idiot. I don't believe that.
But it does make like, see,
you're not a fucking idiot, by the way.
You bring up very, very good points on like the fact that they're multi-ton animals and stuff like that, because I like having like a banter of back and forth ideas of things too, because somebody will point out something that another person never even thought of on a concept of like, it's so especially for someone like me that has base level knowledge, not even base level knowledge in this concept of things too. I mean, it's so interesting where if I start unraveling ideas, the public will be open to unraveling ideas about things. And instead of running with those things, we should look for someone to show us different ideas of like, well, it doesn't mean that because it means this. There's an importance to that. But in today's society, being wrong is kind of like a no-no.
Yeah, but everybody's wrong about everything. um, I don't know. I think people need to just I think asking questions is great. That old saying where there's no stupid questions. I think in regards to science, that saying should ring true. I you wouldn't believe some of the crazy questions I've heard giving museum tours. But I think every question that's asked, no matter how ludicrous, is an opportunity to teach something. And I think anybody who's an academic and anybody who, you know, is a teacher or anything, if they stifle that creativity or if they, you know, make fun of somebody for a question, they don't really realize the damage that they could be doing to that person in the future, because maybe the next time that person won't ask that question. Yeah. Maybe the next time that person will just assume the answer. And I think that's part of the reason why we have conspiracies, because we have means boring science teachers in our public school system.
It's very, very difficult to be able to, you know, first of all, have the courage to ask questions. But I'm like, that's just the way we've been thinking for so long. When I'm like, a lot of people are very open to those ideas of stuff too. I mean, I joke around with people that have like PhDs or archaeologists on Twitter all the time. They put up a comment saying, "Oh, this story of Odin that got his eye taken out over a deal with the Yggdrasil, whatever you want to call." And I would just comment like, "Man, at least he's got the other one. You got to think of the bright side." And it's just a stupid thing where it's like, I'm understanding what you're posting. I'm not just liking and scrolling on. And I'm like, that base interaction is all people want to see. You know, they want to know when they're putting out a paper at whatever time, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, that when someone actually sees it, it's getting an interaction. It's getting a feedback to it, because it lets them know, like, I'm going to keep posting more content so people can understand, you know, people seem to be interested in these topics. Instead of being interested in it and then not making a mark about it, you're doing everybody a disservice, because that person will be like, well, nobody likes listening to this content. They just want to hear my Spotify listens. And then they fucking post a fucking song about Iggy Azalea or something.
Yeah. Well, I'm not feeling too fancy right now. But... yeah. I think people need to just chill out. And honestly, the fact that you're actually like interested in learning and you do more than just like and scroll, I hate to say it, but I'm pretty sure that puts you in the minority. Most people are like too busy to focus. But what we really need, what science communication really needs, is we need articles that make people want to read them on the toilet, because that's the only time that people will actually sit down and read something. On the toilet or on the train.
Damn, that is true though, man, about the toilet.
Yeah.
That's like, we're so, oh my God, I did not know this was a thing. And then I'm fucking running off the next thing after I grab some toilet paper.
Oh man, I went to El Pollo Loco now, and now I'm stuck in the restroom. Thank God that there's this poster and this presentation on Peniceratops I can learn from. You know? It's like that.
Wait, hold on. Are you telling me poop time is for PhDs?
Poop time is where PhDs learn.
I think it's very important, but I think what the next step really needs to be is we need to get you a damn podcast, man. We need to get
you dude. I need to start recording my own. I've been doing so many. Yeah, I just did another podcast, which I think was my best yet. No offense to yours, but I did that Anthro podcast, and we were talking about some of the ethical issues in archaeology and what it's like working as an archaeologist in Southern California. And you know, that just got me so excited. You know, she just started this thing up, but you know, if it's edited correctly and like you were talking about with sound mixing and everything, it can be a very powerful tool for, you know, relaying a lot of information. And I think podcasts are really going to be the new way that people start to get their news. I think we're moving away from like a classic, oh, I'm gonna watch CNN, or oh, I'm gonna watch Fox, or oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. I think people are really going to just start finding, podcasts they like and just listening to them. I think it's just going to continue to grow. It's like listening to an essay. It's like, I think people should start, recording readings of their papers and putting that up online.
As much as it's
I
kind of
don't see
been
why not.
big and trendy right now, the only issue that it will end up getting resolved probably with a little bit more time is that the fact that when people say something on a podcast episode and somebody comes across it a year later, they comment like they're just hearing it for like they're obviously hearing it the first time, but they're actually like it just was recorded, so they have to put their input in. Like I had a comment on a massage podcast back in like 400 episodes ago, and they commented like, actually,
let me stop you right now.
Huh.
Why are you reading the comments? What are you doing?
Well, usually it's like it's somebody asks a question. I want to be able to help out. Yeah, I get no reading comments. I just don't care about the analytics stuff because like I get good listens. I average good, but I get so when you get consumed with the follower content, you get fucking dragged down. But it's like podcasts are so intimate. It's like talk radio in your car. You think it's happening live. Like I have buddies that message me like, "Yo, man, I did not know this," and I'm like, "Yo, that was fucking a year ago. Where have you been on my episodes, man?" And it's like, "Oh, sorry, man, I've been just catching back up." I'm like, "Okay, well, that's never gonna happen, but all right." But it's like you really got to look at like the new platform of what it's going to be. Audiobooks are, they were big when people would walk through museums, listen to audiobooks, listen to a podcast.
I still do.
Yeah. Listen to a podcast because you're listening to someone's perspective of things, of what's going on and through their eyes. That's the most valuable information that you can find. You get to see someone else's years of work or research talk to you rather than reading it through a book that is probably one of the hardest forms to get information from. They kind of cut out the middleman there.
I wouldn't call reading a book one of the hardest forms to get.
It is if you have ADHD.
Yes. I'm sure that does not make it easy. Podcasts are actually great for relaying information like that. I wonder if you could use this medium to like help people who have that same learning disability when they're going through school. Like
I helped a person through this podcast find out he had diabetes and he didn't know.
Were you live?
It was me and him talking. His name is Josh Chume. You can find his past episode. It was like episode 300 something. But during the episode, he's like passing out. He's like going like this. He's like leaning. It looks like he's just kind of like rolling his eyes. But he came back on again, like probably like 50, 60 episodes ago. And he talked about, yeah, my wife saw that video and then she took me to the hospital and I found out I was in the late stages of diabetes, like close to losing a foot. He goes, he lost his sight for a month and a half. He could not see. And then it was just like this whole, like, your podcast helped me find out I had diabetes. Based on that, a doctor saw that episode and said, "Oh, I need to test you for this." And we found out what it was. And I've had generations on here. I've had a grandfather, I've had a father, and I've had the son. They're more powerful than you fucking think. I mean, small achievements in my book when it comes down to the concept of things, but they really can affect a person's life, whether it's a new way of thinking, whether it's understanding somebody's thoughts and stuff. And I'm like, dude, you would be perfect in podcasts. I'll have you on more if you want, man. But I'm telling you, you should start your own too.
I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to come on. I'm always happy to talk about dinosaurs and fossils any day of the week. So, you know me, I just have to be careful not to get too political. Not trying to get canceled over here.
But Tim,
trying to work for a major museum today.
But Tim, where can people find your links? Do you have anything where people can look up some of your research to Instagram?
Yeah, so I actually have a lot of my research on LinkedIn. So if you guys want to look me up on LinkedIn, Timothy James, and you'll be able to find me. You, of course, follow me on my Instagram, Dino Guy 1997. Starting to get a lot more engagement on there. We have a really great community of young Gen Z paleontology educators that are all kind of sticking together. I have like 15 female paleontologists, and then there's me, the only guy. But yeah, go check out my Instagram. Go check out some of the people I follow, like Holly Simon from Whiteside. Yeah, hopefully I'll be starting up a YouTube channel in the coming summer. I live in Hollywood now, literally, so I might as well. Yeah, thanks again for having me on. I know this wasn't my most formal episode, so I just want the audience to know that me and me and you, we just kind of like decided to just hit record today. So
That's
that's
what I
why it's
like. Is I
maybe
like
not a
people find, I guess, more of like the relatableness to it of just having a conversation and being a fly in a room. And I'm like, yo, we could talk about Bigfoot one day if you wanted to. It doesn't matter. It's all about
dude.
kind of the process of the
I'm so
conversation.
down to talk about Bigfoot. I'm
Let's
not gonna lie.
ah
I'm gonna catch some slack for this because I'm supposed to be a professional. But I have a love for cryptozoology, man.
all right,
When I
next
was a little
episode.
kid, dude, I used to get so. Oh yeah,
Ah,
Mocambe membre. Next episode, we're gonna talk about it in the Congo.
oh my god, dude. Oh my
All right.
god. All right, you just got I can't believe this.
Thanks everybody for having me on. Yeah. We'll talk about Bigfoot and all that good stuff next episode. We'll talk about how Bigfoot is widely believed to be a real figure in Native American religions. Most Native Americans believe in Bigfoot, and
Yeah,
that I do.
it's a group high.